Attempt to light the torch, take 2. All the embers that just flew up went out. Mostly just the cotton is burning. Fuel has not yet taken. As of right now, the cotton batting seems to be the only thing truly aflame. The fat itself is not yet lit. The wood of the handle seems to be lighting, which is a problem. Given how much of the upper side is currently aflame, I'm going to rotate the torch so that it's upside down. Well, its orientation is at least reversed. Orientation of the torch has been reversed. So far it seems to be taking fairly well. Turning over the torch seems to have helped significantly with lighting it. Perhaps vertical orientation would help more. Unfortunately, from what I've been able to read and watching right now, is the fat drips off. Having it in a complete vertical orientation would be a poor choice given how much this would burn your hands. As of right now, the fat is dripping down straight down and not dripping down the handle as far as I can tell, which means someone holding this would be more or less comfortable. The handle itself is starting to burn though, especially right at where the batting and the wood meet. It's likely that this will burn through before the batting ever comes close to being finished, which means that in future the handles need to be made of a more flame-resistant material, perhaps a hardwood or a metal. Hardwood would be preferable, if only because it allows us to staple things in better. Most of the batting is now lit, and the fat itself is now melting down. In theory, it should be wicking into the cotton and burning through, but as of right now, I'm not sure if it is. The cotton itself is blackening, but that's expected. The amount of smoke being generated from this is fairly small, and smells rather sweet, kind of bacony, as would be expected from the fat. I am going to adjust the camera very slightly so that there is a better view of the material, increasing an angle very slightly. This is now a direct view of the torch flame. Unsure if it's able to be seen in the camera video, however, there is a constant stream of fat dribbling down. This is likely due to an excess amount of it being congealed on the tip, and I don't think this would be an issue if the torch had only been allowed to soak up as much as it could while the fat was kept warm and then removed. Perhaps another version of this could include a properly soaked towel. The amount of smoke continues to be fairly small, and again smells nice. It doesn't particularly hurt the eyes when it inflects, so bonus is there. The torch itself is casting a fairly bright light, illuminating perhaps 10-15 feet around the torch itself in good size brightness. It does seem to have finally engulfed the entire torch. It may be worth rotating once more to see if it's continued to burn on this side after that. Rotating the torch again now. The torch is once again rotated. The handle remains cool to the touch and is very handleable. The flame itself is beginning to be a little bit taller than would probably be up best. It is perhaps 10 inches in length from the top of the torch to the height of the flame. The handle itself is definitely burning now. It's burnt down about an inch past where the batting is. The fat continues to drip down off of the batting. It's likely that this fuel source is just a poor choice. Perhaps including some sort of vial or something inside to act as a well for the wicking material to pull from would be a good choice. But that may overcomplicate the torch itself. As of right now, it is definitely fully burning. And once again, the lighting is fairly good. Looking around, it's probably 15 feet of good illumination. It's fairly bright. This first torch is a wooden stave made from a piece of old fence boarding that was laying around because I was lazy and didn't want to go hunting for a new piece of wood. It is then wrapped around with jute cording, roughly 10 meters worth, forming a base layer, 1 layer deep, perhaps 15 to 20 layers tall, height being along the length of the torch itself. This jute is attached to the wood via several steel staples, which are hammered in. They're actually horseshoe nails. These jute is then tied to form a small knot on either end, and several nails are placed throughout to hold it in case parts of it burn through. The cotton webbing is a common drop cloth, or not drop cloth, but purchasable rags bought from Home Depot as white cotton rags. It as well was folded 3 times so as to form a thin wrap, and then wrapped around the jute to form a casing. The goal being that it would be able to wick from the jute, which might act as a bit of a well. The cotton webbing was again attached via several steel horseshoe nails hammered into the wood. Illumination is fairly consistent. Very little difference between now and when it was burning perhaps a minute ago. The stream of fat dripping down to the ground has halted and is no longer happening. There is a collected puddle of fat below it, but it is not significant. It's been absorbed mostly by the ash located in the fire pit below the torch. The warmth from the torch is not huge. It is heat, but it isn't hot. As in that I can hold my hand within a few inches without feeling like it's going to burn me. The wood of the torch itself is still cool to the touch and could be handled quite easily. The wood around the base of the webbing or the padding is starting to burn fairly heavily and looks like it's fairly burnt through. It's possible that it's forming a bit of a charcoal layer, and it's unlikely that it will last, but it may remain solid for a short while more. I would hypothesize that given the amount of burn to that any jostling might break that joint down. However, for this test, since we're testing longevity of burn time, we'll leave it going. The smoke has definitely increased in quantity, but the smell is still pleasant and the not stinging to the eyes. All in all, it's fairly benign to be around. It's likely that it contains some chemicals that are unpleasant to consume, but largely it seems to just be the carbon dioxide and water. There's a small amount of scent that is likely coming from the fat, and once again, it smells a bit like bacon or a little bit sweet. The amount of trail currently happening with the upper flame is largely due to the wind. There's a light breeze tonight, but it isn't terribly strong. I'm unsure whether or not this flame would be able to handle being in a strong wind or fast movement. Future tests will have to examine those two properties. The wood of the stave is roughly 1/2 inch thick by 1.5 inches wide, and is rectangular in shape. Future torches should probably have a round handle so as to be easier to hold, though there may be advantages to a square handle for storage or for patterning. The breeze has just increased slightly and the torch is starting to lose flame on the windward side, but not significantly. So far, it seems that the outer layer of cotton batting is still secure and has not yet burned through. The underside shows that where the batting is attached in its thinnest point, it is starting to burn, but it's not significant. All in all, the batting used this time seems to be very effective. The jute cording should be tested separately to see if it actually is assisting at all. But in this stage, I would say that the current thing to improve would be the handle. The fuel itself was difficult to light, taking perhaps 3 or 4 minutes to get a flame to go, using small wooden matches. Originally I used a lighter, but the lighter ran out of fuel. It's undetermined whether or not the lighter would have been more effective or less, given that the match was the end result effectiveness. My guess would be that the difficulty in lighting was due to temperature, in that the fat does not light at low temperatures. So perhaps an area of the fat had to be heated before it was able to be lit. It's possible that by dipping in warm fat rather than letting it congeal around the torch, that it'd be possible to have the fat light quicker. It should also be tried later.